Yesterday, I posted a video about the results of the SAG Awards on Sunday night, during which Timothee Chalamet, for his portrayal of Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown, stunned with his victory, beating out Adrian Brody for The Brutalist. Adrian Brody having beaten out Chalamet in a series of award shows, including most notably the Golden Globes, leading up to the SAG Awards this past Sunday night. And the victory would seem to indicate possibly that A Complete Unknown, in some respects, might be winning the final lap in the race that is the 2025 award season in Hollywood. And I've been thinking more since posting that video about why that might be. Surely, to be clear, a big reason for that has to be the talent and brilliance that Chalamet brings to his role for his portrayal as Bob Dylan in the film. The film, as I've said abundantly here at the Curious Listener in over the past month or two now, since first seeing the film, includes a wide array of really remarkable acting. Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez, Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash, Ed Norton as Pete Seeger, Scoot McNairy as an ailing Woody Guthrie. Um, the film's departure from the facts is something that I've expressed great concern over again and again here at the Curious Listener. That aside, the acting, I've always said and believe, is brilliant throughout the film. And so if you're going with a mindset of letting go of the historical accuracy and the veracity of the narrative itself, and just going to appreciate some fine acting, you're in for a real treat with A Complete Unknown. And that begins, of course, with the lead role, Timothée Chalamet playing Bob Dylan. Now, why might A Complete Unknown, apart from the brilliance of the acting throughout the film, be winning perhaps the final lap in the race here? That is the 2025 award season in Hollywood. And it occurs to me that the timing with which votes were cast for these respective award shows, just taking the Academy Awards, the SAG Awards, and the Oscars, and the Academy Awards, the SAG Awards, and the Golden Globes, it's quite interesting to note how the timing of the actual voting on both nominees and the eventual winners in the respective categories in which those nominees are chosen allowed ample time for certain controversies, perhaps, to influence voters' decisions. Here's specifically what I mean as it pertains to films like Emilia Perez, The Brutalist, and A Complete Unknown. Take the SAG Awards, for instance. The SAG Awards final voting deadline for winners of the SAG Awards. Okay, we're not talking about nominees. We're talking about the actual winners now. Okay, that ended on at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on Friday, February 21st, just 2 days prior to the show itself, which, of course, as you know, took place Sunday night, the evening of February 23rd, just the other day. Okay, so February 21st is when voting on the winners ended there for the SAG Awards. The Academy Awards, meanwhile, that the final voting deadline for winners in the Academy Awards, the Oscars show to be held March 2nd on ABC at 7 p.m. Also will be streamed, as I've said, on Hulu. And if you're international in the UK or Australia, you can stream it on Disney Plus. By it, I mean the Oscars, the Academy Awards, coming up on this weekend on March 2nd. Well, that final voting on winners ended 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, February 18th. Okay, so about a week ago today, as I'm recording this on Tuesday, February 25th. Additionally, voting to select nominees for the 2025 Academy Awards ended on January 12th. That is a hugely important date to bear in mind as we continue here in this video. Okay, that's 8 days prior to a certain controversy breaking that really, I think, dealt a wounding blow to the Brutalist. And I think that's partly what we saw play out upon further reflection at the SAG Awards on Sunday night. Here's why these deadlines may influence results. With The Brutalist, you have this AI controversy that broke around January 20th, okay, when the film editor for The Brutalist, a guy named David Jansko, had said in an interview with a publication called Red Shark that AI had been used to perfect the Hungarian accents that Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones respectively attempt to pull off to the best of their ability in the film. Specifically, he used an AI tool called Respeecher, made by a Ukrainian software company, to do this because, quote, as he himself said, by he I mean the film editor, David Jansko, quote, I am a native Hungarian speaker, and I know that it is one of the most difficult languages to learn to pronounce. It is an extremely unique language. We coached Brody and Jones, and they did a fabulous job, but we also wanted to perfect it so that even locals will not spot any difference. The way this process worked, apparently, is as follows. Quote, Brody and Jones recorded their voices into the software, while Jansko said he also fed his voice, quote, to finesse the tricky dialect. Okay, but the Variety story discussed social media criticism of this use of AI in the film. In part along the lines that the ability to, quote, finesse tricky dialect was a, quote, fundamental aspect of acting, right? Tricky territory indeed, for perhaps for in ways that Jansko didn't foresee or intend. Now, he himself, the film editor for The Brutalist, dismissed his use of AI in The Brutalist as merely an attempt to, quote, to create these tiny little details that we didn't have the money or the time to shoot. A separate Variety story on this acknowledged widespread concern about the use of AI in Hollywood because, quote, the more it's used, the more it could lead to job loss in Hollywood. Now, the director, Mr. Corbet, Brady Corbet, the director of The Brutalist, swiftly responded to this and argued that the use of AI in no way took away from the fact that Brody and Jones's performances were entirely their own in this film. He strenuously defended that perspective as to their contributions in this film, the extent to which their raw organic talent alone were responsible for the quality of their performances in The Brutalist. And he, along with Mr. Jansko, are arguing that it was merely the tweaking of a letter or the pronunciation of a vowel here or there to perfect their Hungarian accents that AI assisted them with. Nonetheless, as I just mentioned, there's widespread bristling across Hollywood about the extent to which AI is going to shape the future of the profession in ways that could be profoundly disruptive. So when this news broke, it was a bit of an earthquake for The Brutalist, which to that point had enjoyed a thunderous run. Brody winning for best male actor in a leading role at the Golden Globes, the film winning Best Motion Picture for Drama at the Golden Globes. And concerns about the use of AI in Hollywood extend well beyond the fear of job losses. In fact, to his credit, director James Mangold, the director of A Complete Unknown, by contrast, instead of using AI in A Complete Unknown, has expressed explicitly in interviews his distrust of using AI in films. He has said that there's an extent to which it takes away from the authenticity and the organic, spontaneous nature of what emerges from the creative process that is filmmaking. He is troubled. He has said in interviews by how AI could sort of shape those elements of filmmaking and the profession at a creative level in the months and years ahead. Okay, so it's an interesting contrast, isn't it? James Mangold expressing some suspicion and cynicism with regard to the use of AI. Whereas The Brutalist, which up until January 20th, when that story broke, had been just hammering away at Chalamet and A Complete Unknown with win after win, especially on a stage as big as the Golden Globes. It came out that they had used AI in key ways in this film. Okay, so The Brutalist. Again, I mentioned that January 12th is when votes on nominations, not wins, nominations for the Oscars came out. And this is more than a week before this controversy broke, right? Well, The Brutalist at that point received 10 nominations for the 2025 Oscars, which were voted on more than a week prior to the AI controversy coming out. Voting on the actual winners, however, as we just said, that ended nearly a month after the controversy came up. Plenty of time to influence voters' decisions. A month would seem to be an eternity. During which those voters could contemplate this revelation that AI had anything to do with the performances of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones, especially Brody, right? Nominated for award show after award show, and still to this point, as recently as this past Sunday, and reporting in Variety and the LA Times on the SAG Awards, described as the favorite to win this weekend for Best Actor Among Men at the Oscars. Okay, so one wonders the extent to which this controversy might, to some extent, explain the stunning upset that Chalamet pulled off at the SAG Awards. He himself, as I said in my prior video, which you can go watch, I can link to it in the description of this one. He himself expressed, both with his body language and with post-show interviews, that he himself was stunned to have won that award at the SAG Awards. Okay, Which gets us to the Emilia Perez controversy. You might have noticed, if you watch the SAG Awards, that co-stars Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana looked less than thrilled to have to champion that film during their introduction of the film as a customary part of Saturday night's SAG Awards show. Their intro of the film, it struck me as I was watching it, looked a little more like a hostage video than a celebration of a project that, by the way, had scored 13 Oscar nominations. 13, more than a dozen. The old baker's dozen of Oscar nominations for Emilia Perez. Just stunning, right? By Gomez's own admission, however, at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, quote, some of the magic has disappeared given the controversy surrounding the project. Here we go again. And that controversy, as it pertains to Emilia Perez, is a terribly familiar one. Regrettable past tweets by the film star. Where have we heard this before, right? We've seen time and again regrettable past tweets, tarnishing the careers of stars who either are on the rise or well established. In this case, trans actor Karla Sofía Gascón, right, who, as Yahoo noted at the SAG Awards, quote, was absent from the Netflix film's introduction, which did feature Zoe and Selena at Sunday night's SAG Awards. The Yahoo story summarizes the controversy surrounding Gascón as follows. Quote, screenshots of controversial posts from Gascon's now deleted X account were shared by writer Sarah Hagi, Hagi, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. The posts included language that disparaged Islam, including a 2016 post that read, quote, Islam is becoming a hotbed of infection for humanity that urgently needs to be cured. The story goes on to note, according to a Google-provided translation of another post, this one from 2001 that is still up, Gascón wrote, quote, the West should ban Islam and any political or religious manifestation that violates human rights and universal values. In other since-deleted tweets, Yahoo notes, Gascón made, quote, troubling comments about the murder of George Floyd, diversity at the Oscars, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the COVID-19 vaccine. This broke on January 30th, again back to the timing of voting with respect to these controversies breaking out, well in advance of voting deadlines for both the Oscars and the SAG Awards, right? Now, there's another twist to this as it pertains to Emilia Perez, which is the so-called Fab Five element at the Oscars. There's a story by The Wrap that I'll link to in the description of this video that summarizes that aspect of things as it pertains to Emilia Perez as follows. Quote, the Academy Awards will apparently avoid a looming embarrassment. Wow. A looming embarrassment for a film that just, a month and a half ago scored more than a dozen Oscar nominations. What a precipitous fall for a film that seemed to be on top of the world so recently. A looming embarrassment for this year's show, and won't be asking any past winners to take the stage and speak glowingly about Emilia Perez star and Best Actress nominee Karla Sofía Gascón. Ever since the Oscar campaign for Gascón began to crumble over her history of racist and anti-Muslim tweets, Oscar watchers have been wondering how the Academy was going to deal with this on the show. Of particular concern was the fact that the Oscar producers previously announced that they would bring back the Fab Five format, which was first used in 2009, in which 5 previous winners present an award together, with each of the past winners praising one of this year's nominees. When that format has been implemented in the past, it was used in the 4 acting categories, with past Oscar winners speaking directly to and heaping praise upon the nominees sitting in the audience in front of them. And in the wake of the widespread condemnation of Gascon's old tweets, the question was obvious: who would get to stand on stage and say nice things about the disgraced Emilia Perez star? Now it turns out the Academy has a way out. The answer to that question is no one. When it announced the return of the Fab Five format, the news was deliberately kept vague without any mention of the categories in which it would be used. The Wrap has learned that the Oscars will indeed bring back Fab Five, just not in the acting categories. Instead, it will be used in categories to highlight below-the-line talent, with notable Oscar winners speaking out about the contributions of people behind the scenes. So, again, as we see from the aforementioned voting deadlines, the timing with which these controversies broke allowed ample time for that news to influence voting on winners for both the SAG Awards and this weekend's forthcoming Oscars show. And perhaps we saw the results of that, right? With Conclave beating out The Brutalist for Best Picture at SAG, and Timothee Chalamet beating out Adrien Brody for Best Actor in a leading role among men. If Chalamet pulls that off again this weekend, I feel like this question will be all the more resonant won't it? To what extent did these controversies, especially with regard to The Brutalist, I mean, the use of AI in film, and at a moment of political tension, such as the one we're living through, as exemplified by Jane Fonda's speech at the SAG Awards on Sunday night, for that kind of a controversy to be looming over Emilia Perez, it would certainly seem to open the door, as it did for a film like Conclave, which again beat out The Brutalist at the SAG Awards for best performance by a cast, right? Like Chalamet beating out Adrian Brody at the Brutalist for best actor. It would seem possible that if Chalamet pulls it off this Sunday, he will have done so because a complete unknown won the final lap in the awards race, in this awards race in Hollywood in 2025, at least in part because of these controversies, which to some extent it would be kind of unfortunate, because you really want the focus to be on Chalamet's talent. You want the focus to be on the quality of the acting in these films, and you want the awards to be about only that. But man, as I mentioned, controversies of these kinds breaking out at a moment like this one, definitely going to complicate things and have perhaps slowed the rolls of both The Brutalist and certainly Emilia Perez as we near the finish line this Sunday at the Oscars. All the more reason to definitely tune in this Sunday at the Academy Awards. Again, if you're a Dylan fan, if you are a fan of A Complete Unknown, this might be one more glimmer of hope, unfortunate though it is, for that film and for Timothee Chalamet. Tune in and find out, man. It's going to be an interesting night for fans of this film and fans of film in general.